Welcome to DrJLT Economics. I'm Dr. Julian Tong. In today's episode, I want to talk about 3 glaring signs that capitalism has become a mockery of itself. Indeed, I have written an article on my blog, so I invite you to check it out. I'm leaving a link in the description below. In this recording, in this video indeed, I'm going to actually mostly read this article, and I will give some comments on it because I think these are some things that are really important, but perhaps perhaps there is too much to talk about, and so I want to basically read this article and possibly not expand too much, and I will of course talk about these issues more in future episodes. So here's this article. I begin by saying that capitalism is understood by many to represent 2 ideals, right? The rule of law and the free market. But as I have stressed repeatedly in this podcast, however, that these ideals are not always part of the reality. Capitalism prospers indeed when there is rule of law and the free market, but capitalism withers when select elites stand above the law and the government actively chooses winners and losers. But as we enter the 2020s, it is very clear to me indeed that the free market is no more, at least in the West, and I think perhaps across the world. There are actually, I want to give a little bit comment here. I think when people, I heard people say, the recent statistics show that in the last decade and a half, thanks to quantitative easing from a certain bunch of whatevers, thanks to them, poverty in the world has increased. If we take out China, which has done quite well, but if we take out China, poverty across the world has increased, right? This is also part of the reason why extremism has become a bigger problem. Why countries like Europe and some other country are facing immigration crisis. Right, one crisis after another, because poverty and instability, and migration are all tightly connected, and this is partly because of this ridiculous program called quantitative easing. Okay, let me keep on reading this article. So I'm pointing out 3 glaring signs, right? The first sign, I call it the growth craze in equity. Ideally, the difference between consumption and investment is that the latter is income generating, right? So if you buy a car, this car is probably not an investment. So maybe if you're lucky, you buy a rare car, you keep it over time, it increases in price, but you don't gain anything unless you sell it. This is not an investment. But if you own a taxi company and then you buy cars and use these cars as as means of production, right, to create value, that will be an investment, right? In the equity market, an investment is one that pays the investor more dividends than the opportunity cost and risk premium attached to this investment, to this purchase of stock. But in recent years, particularly after money printing program started, the equity market has turned upside down, right? The biggest, the most ridiculous, one of the most ridiculous examples is this. As I write, well-run, profitable, dividend-paying companies, they pay dividends, right? They do as before. But what has changed is that poorly run, unprofitable companies that are basically currently zombie companies that would go bankrupt, now have access to loans at 0% interest rate. They borrow money, right? They borrow more money than their entire company has assets, and then they use this money to buy their own stocks, right? To buy back their own stocks, so that their stock prices are higher than, perform better than some well-run companies. This is ridiculous. And one of the worst managed company in the world is a 3-letter company, IBM, right? IBM, International Business Machines, currently is a company that produces no machine. Doesn't matter if it's business or not. It's mostly a consulting firm now. This company, for 4 decades, was the world's biggest company in the world. Right? The world's biggest company now is nowhere near top 40. I think it's much lower. In the last decade, this poorly run company has borrowed more money and spent more money in stock buybacks than the current market capitalization. What ridiculous activity is it? And this company, because it's a consulting firm, it has very little asset anyway. So this is if there is any sign that capitalism, financial market in capitalism, all the rules have been annulled. This is nullified. This is one of them, right? So, and then this also happens with venture-backed tech startups, right? We see these tech startups that never generate any profit, right? No income, never pay tax, and these companies, they have big market share, but every dollar in income it generates, they probably lose 10 cents or 20 cents, perhaps even more, right? So that's a different model, right? This, as I said, as I write here in this article, right? This really goes against what capitalism is, the stock market is about, right? The stock market is about, should be about a well-run, profitable company that needs to raise funds to expand more quickly, right? The company raises funds and then invest these funds into production, and then when the investment becomes successful, right, in production, the production becomes successful, it can afford to award its investors in the form of dividends. That's what stock market should be about. It should be about value. It should be about investment. But now it's pure speculation, right? And these venture-backed tech startups, they are just loss leaders. A competition of which idea can lose the most money, and then they will be funded by VCs, and they will be put up into billion-dollar IPOs, unicorns, and then of course eventually they close down one after another, because the business model is not there. And now last year, there's also the SPAC scam, right? This is basically, it's called SPAC. It's it's like speculation, right? It is of course it's SPAC, not a spec, but it's A, not E, but whatever. A SPAC is a special purpose acquisition company. What is that exactly? It is a shell company. It's a company that does not exist. It's a company that has the name, but hasn't developed any product, hasn't gotten a concrete plan on doing business. Some of the SPACs hasn't even chosen the industry that they are going to go into. They just have a name, and they are able to raise billions of dollars in IPOs. What ridicule of, if there is any ridicule, any mockery of capitalism, this is it, right? This is crazy. And this happens in the American stock market. This is crazy. If you tell me that this happened in a cryptocurrency ICO with a coin that is named as scam, right? ICAM, scam coin, or shit coin, or fuck coin. By the way, these I have searched. They all exist, right? They all exist. If you tell me these exist, I'm not that surprised. But if you tell me that the SPAC exists in American stock market and they have raised tens of billions of dollars, well, this is crazy. This is crazy. I think people who have made such purchases, so-called investments, not really investments, so-called investments, they are either playing with other people's money, or they have done too much drugs, or both. Right. The second sign is what I call the printer boom. The printer boom is basically, money printing. I have talked about this a lot on this podcast, so I don't think I'm going to go into too much details. But one thing I want to point out is as I say in this article, the absurdity of the belief, right, that money printing can add value. And of course, by manipulating the macroeconomic numbers, you can say that money printing creates value, because when you print money, right? If you double the monetary supply, if you double the money supply, if the value stays the same, your money denominated value should be double, right? But of course, the money's it's not calculated that way, right? And then because there is all these hedonic adjustments with the CPI, so they can claim that the interest rate, that's the inflation is low, or there is no inflation, or that the inflation is transitory. I don't understand. I mean, I guess I don't understand. I didn't think the word transitory means that it's transient, right? Transient, I understand basically, and I don't think it's transient, but transitory, my understanding of transitory, the word, is that it's transitioning from one thing to the next. That's transitory to me, and so transitory in this case would be transitory from low inflation to high inflation. That's transitory, and yet this guy, this so-called economist, comes out and frequently say that the inflation is transitory, and everyone repeats it. I guess this is really 2020, because the words certainly can have any meaning as long as you want it to, right? Whatever. There is no truth but the truth that you think, your version of truth, right? This is completely 2020 crazy. Black is black and white, black is white, right? White is black, whatever, however you like. This is crazy. Printing money and thinking that it's going to it's creating value. I have another thing that I wanted to point out, but I thought so that I didn't actually want to write very long. It already took me an hour to write this, and I know that it is probably not very good writing, but it took me an hour to write it. so I didn't want to write too much longer. But another example that's connected to the printable is the idea that an economy is driven by demand, and people talk so much about demand. So we must stimulate the economy with printed money to increase the demand, to boost the demand, so that the economy can be better. That violates the economic principle, right? The economic principle of the supply and demand. You cannot go with one side of the equation and hope that it's going to just increase, right? The thing is this: if you have more supply than there is demand, then you need demand. But if you have more demands than there is supply, having more demand, printing more money, is not going to help with the supply. And this is exactly the case with the country that prints the money, because it's and it's evidenced by the current account deficit, the trade deficit by this country. And this country is the country that thinks that demand is what drives the economy, and this is a ridiculous concept. Having said all that, I must also say that the U.S. dollar, being the world's reserve currency, America needs to run a trade deficit. It needs to export its money. So that is something that is designed into the system. So any people who want to say that Americans are being taken advantage of, that is bullshit. They are printing money and getting goods and services. That is the system, and of course that is the system imposed upon the world by America, because it won the World War. Right? That's the main reason. Now the third signal that I mentioned is the Doge or dog mania. This is because, as I say, in 2021, I can't talk about the failure of Western capitalism without mentioning the Dogecoin mania. Now, of course, Dogecoin is not really Doge, right? What is a Doge? Doge is some a guy is almost like a duke from Venice. That's Doge. This is dog. The reason there is an E is because I guess it's because the guy who wrote it either as a mockery, or because the guy who first started this meme didn't learn English very well and couldn't and misspelled it. Perhaps a little bit of both, right? Maybe someone originally made a meme and said it's a dog, and someone who copied it, it become a dogger, and this dogger is catched on more. Why? Because as I write here, right, it is right alongside meme stocks. This meme coin mania highlight the incessant decline of mental acuity in the age of smartphone, apps, social media, and wokeism. Right? Basically, this is a polite way of saying that the people, especially young people, are getting more stupid by the day. And this is thanks to social media, smartphone, apps, and also games. And in fact, I should also talk about stupid games. The more stupid the game, the more people love it. It's crazy, right? It is crazy. But anyway, it is dog. And the thing that bothers me, it really bothers me a lot, but not so much that I miss any sleep, but if I really think about the economics, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who believe that this Dogecoin, this dog, is going to replace the dollar as the world's reserve currency. That's unbelievable. There are people who say, who are thinking that this dog is the new Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin, I believe, is a bubble, right? It demonstrates the technology, but it's in itself, it has no value, right? But of course, it's not surprising, right? This goes back to companies that don't make money. As I said, as I talked about in the very beginning, companies that don't make money, companies that can never make money, and therefore investing in their stocks can never be called an investment. They're fine because as long as the stock price goes up, you can sell to the next fool, the bigger fool. And so if the stock market can function that way, why can't the dog? This is ridiculous. And really, there are people who are saying today that a dog coin, okay, you see the Bitcoin maximalists, they say that the dog coin is a scam. People are going to lose all their money, right? And then, of course, the stock market guys, they say the Bitcoin is a scam. They're going to lose all their money. What I say is that all these markets, they're all virtual markets. It's only the stocks of profitable, well-run companies. Those are investments. Everything else, whether it's SPACs, whether it's companies that are unprofitable, whether it is the Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, a dog, it is no different. There is no difference. There is nothing separating between them. They are all things that have a price, but no value. They have a price, but no value, right? I think Warren Buffett says this, right? Price is what you pay, value is what you get. And when you pay for dog, you get dog shit. That's what it is. But anyway, so at the end of this article, I say this, and I think this is something that is very important to really, I think, to take away from this article. I say this: the fact that financial media cannot stop talking about Dogecoin, and that a large number of people believe in it, reflects the collapse of capitalist civilization. It is the best microprism of what has been wrong with Western capitalism in the last decade. Working is now looked down upon. Value is no longer appreciated. Knowledge is ignored, but memes are where millions spend their time spreading. Everyone has his or her own version of truth, and the media straight up invents its own version of it. When every single bit of market signal is distorted, the market can function no longer. Like a chicken without its head, it runs wildly, unconscious about the danger it is in. Where money printing has been able to prop up the financial market, the real economy is being devastated. Sooner or later, in fact, quite soon, I would wager, they will stop printing their money because the paper will be worth more, and the house of cards will go with it. Right. So that's what that's my judgment of the situation. I think, really, in the long term, in the short term you can cheat. In the long term, there are two things that you cannot change. One is the laws of physics. Two is the laws of economy. Right. These two things you cannot cheat. If you try to jump off a cliff, you will fall down the mountain and you will die. If you try to invent your own version of economic law of economics, you will soon see the collapse of your economy, right? This partly is what happened with the planned economies, but I think it's not completely so. And in fact, in the next episode, I want to talk about the collapse of the Soviet Union and what we could learn from it from a macroeconomic point of view. Anyway, so thank you for listening and thank you for watching this video. You can find this article in the description below. I wish you a great day and of course, subscribe and like. Bye-bye.